So just to introduce like myself, introduce you a little bit. You will obviously go into more detail as to who you are, but what this is. So this is essentially a podcast, but we're doing it in person. That's why we also have the visuals. And this is a little series that I've called Game Changers. And this is a podcast, like video series with people in the gaming industry who are leaders and who have, in my opinion, had very interesting careers for one reason or another. Something that like I've seen their profiles on LinkedIn. I've been like, oh, that's interesting. I have some questions. How did they get here? Why did they do this? So this is actually the first one ever. And we're in Finland in Helsinki, and I'm with Diana. Diana is the production director here at Next Games, which is a Netflix studio. My name is Melanie. I'm a senior recruitment consultant at Evolution. I would just like to say why I'm wearing these socks because I know that people are going to be looking and judging. So I just want to make it very clear that in Finland, it's very normal for officers to be shoeless. So you're not allowed to wear your outside shoes. You either have to wear slippers or socks or like special inside shoes. These are my socks that my granny has knitted for me. So she's really very pleased that she made it on the internet.
So sweet.
So yes, that's why I'm wearing these socks. I do own shoes, just to be clear. So that's my introduction to why we're doing this. So Diana, do you want to give like your introduction and go into a bit more detail as to who
Yes.
you are?
Yes, I'd love to. So I'll go back way, way, way back. My origin starts around when I was 12 years old. Every single day during that time, for about 4 hours a day, I was a prince from faraway land of Persia. You know what I mean?
I
I
know
was
what you mean.
playing classic games of Prince of Persia, and I forgot about sleep, I forgot about homework, I forgot about absolutely everything. And for a nerdy kid like me, and if you picture ponytails, school uniform, only glasses missing, missing homework was a lot. And that's when I actually realized that I'll probably have a future in games some way or another by some kismet or something coming together. Fast forward to today, I'm 18 years in gaming. I've collected a few famous X's, X Rovio, X Remedy, X Unity, X Epic Games, X Gameloft, and here we are in the offices of Next Games, Netflix Game Studio. And I had opportunity to work with some of the most creative and amazing teams all around the globe. Mostly working in production and product, doing a bit of a dual role during this time, and hopefully I'll still work for a few years, and I'll have the opportunity to create the new Prince of Persia for some other 12-year-old.
Yeah, that's very, very cool. My first game was Pokemon
Not
on
about
my
one.
Game Boy Yellow,
Not
Pikachu.
about one.
Yeah, that was it. I have asked my mum, was the Game Boy Yellow the first console, or my friend had a Sega Mega Drive, but she can't remember which one it was. And I've tried to express the importance of this question, but I don't think she quite
Mm,
understands. But Prince of
yeah.
Persia, and I've seen it since, but I didn't play it when I was younger.
Oh, that was my intro. That was the segue into what I am. Then it was Sega, then it was Sonic, and I'm still addicted to it. But that was the stepping stone to
Yeah,
what I am right
that's
now.
very cool. So the reason why I found your career and your profile so interesting is because you have predominantly stayed in the Finnish scene. So you've worked
Yeah.
for most of the very famous and very successful gaming studios in Finland, and you're a producer. Obviously, you're a director now, but like your background in production, you've done both PC console and mobile.
Yeah.
The recruitment that I do, amongst other things, is production recruitment. And it's quite rare to find someone who has so much experience in both PC console and mobile. And I don't think it's people's fault per se. It's not
No.
that someone is like, I want to only be a mobile game producer. It's actually very hard to be able to go from one camp to another. People are, I think, a bit skeptical of hiring people that have only got experience in one camp and not the other, etc. So my first question is, because I think this is what I'm interested in and what I think other people will be interested in, is yes, of course, how did you do it? But first of all, from your perspective, what are the similarities between being in production, PC, console, mobile, and then what are the differences? And then after that, then like how did you
Hmm.
do it? Like what have your experiences been working in both?
Yeah. I do get that question a lot, especially from people who are just starting off, because as you said, this inherent fear, this is it. If I stick with one lane for too long, this is it.
Mm,
I'm never going to be able to cross that proverbial border
yeah.
between the two. And people even try to specifically jump into the other side just to be able to secure their future. On the surface, they're the same. Look, it has to do with organizing the production, making sure all of the parties are talking. It's making sure there's a schedule and people understand what they need to do at any given time. It's budgeting. It's a lot of the basics setting up processes that are exactly the same between the two sides. Where it comes down to, and the line is right now getting blurred, which is a good thing for the industry because then all of that movement between the two can actually start happening is two things. One is the way of thinking about games in general, and I'll open it up a little bit, and the scale. The scale is fundamentally, if you're talking about a 9-year game that takes 9 years to make versus a hyper casual being 2 months, you can imagine there is a huge difference. You can organize one team or a team of 20 teams, and it is difficult. It is a very different challenge. Uh, but it is all right now blurring very much. You can see a live ops game with 150 people maintaining it,
Right.
and you can see smaller production, some being like 10, 20 people, still creating very fun experiences and releasing them on Steam, PC, console, wherever. So it is starting to blur a lot. But the way of thinking is the one thing that is not really changing, and I would love to see changing a little bit more. The comparison I draw for people who don't know how to do that is one is a marathon, the other one is building a cathedral. That's like the best way I can describe that.
Okay.
A mobile, you talk about the moment you release, is the moment your real work starts. It doesn't
Okay.
have to be perfect. You can reiterate afterwards.
True.
You get the first signal and you improve and improve and improve. We all know one company that does like 2 years of quiet soft launches and then becomes a big hit. When it comes to PC and console, the thinking is we have to build this perfect thing, and it's all about that big bang of the first day. So production is skewed towards the very, very beginning. So it's very heavy in the beginning. And afterwards, yes, you have DLCs, you have updates, unless you're talking about game as a service, it's not the same. So those are kind of like the big fundamental differences. Underneath, the mechanics are basically the same. But those differences starting to align a lot closer is the thing that actually allowed me to make the jump. And I think this is also something others can take away from. What there was a willingness, obviously, from the company, my first PC and console company, to jump into that, and they wanted to become more efficient and they wanted to move faster. I went into the territory of not talking about specifically experiences, but what can I bring to the table? If you go down to first principles and you ask any production team, do you want to move fast? Do you want to be efficient? Do you want to be able to produce things in a fashion that is predictable? Nobody's going to tell you no. Nobody's going to tell you, oh my God, you don't have experience. So going to that allowed me, and of course, all willingness from the other side allowed me to skew the conversation from just purely experiential things to more what can I bring to the table. And as said, the borders are starting to blur quite a bit. You can have a person coming from a PC and console world jump into 150 people live ops productions and actually be even more useful than somebody who's had 20 years of experience in mobile.
What do you say then? Because you said about the if you come from mobile going into PC console and you say that, oh, do you want to produce faster? Like no one's going to
Yeah.
say no. So
What about the other way?
the other way is harder because my understanding is going
Yes.
from mobile to PC console is a bit easier because it's that, well, I'm quick, you're welcome. But going the other way, like, yeah, so I've done projects where it takes 7 years, and now I'm asking to
Yes.
work on a project that's 2 months. How do you navigate that? And I know that you didn't do it that way around, but you
Yeah.
have the experience. So how would you navigate the other way around?
Yeah. So navigating the other way around is exactly what I was describing, like going into a 150 people project. If you look at some of the biggest studios right now, none of them operate at a 9 or 10 people scale. None of them, if you look at the charts, um, both Apple and Android, the titles in there do not move all that much. And they haven't moved for the last 5 years. Yes, it is not production per se, it is more post-production live operations. But all of those experiences coming from PC and console, operating a ginormous machine of 7 years of production and juggling all the different contractors, all the different disciplines, and bringing that again, going to the very foundations of can you handle the scale, what you're doing? And going into that conversation, would you be able to handle the scale in the future if, say, it becomes even a bigger runaway success? Is the thing that you just get the conversation going into.
Okay. In terms of the day to day, are there any differences? Like, I mean, like the bog standard production, whether it's PC, console, or mobile, in terms of running daily stand-ups, like, is there any difference?
No, that's the thing. The foundational process is exactly the same. You're running agile. Well, if you know what you're doing, obviously, you're running agile process. There might be a difference of whether it's a 1 week sprint or a 4 week sprint, but that's a variable within the equation. Fundamentally, you have to have people understand what they're doing at any given time. They have to see what the big picture is, and they have to understand how to get from point A to point final product. The final product might change. It could be at the end of it a not perfect thing where the work begins, where it in a lot of mobile titles, or it can be a big bang and you just run like crazy towards that huge cathedral.
So why do you think then so many hiring managers are reluctant to consider people from the other camp?
They think that this slowness in everyone's head, we all have biases. So in our heads, we have a bias a lot of the time, and I'm including myself. I've been guilty of that in the past as well. We have a bias, they're going to move slow or they're going to get bored. This is going to be too small of a pond for a big fish like that. And how are they going to care about 9 or 10 people when they've been handling a 70 people production?
Right.
So there's a lot of inherent biases that you just have to come up with the answers to. You just have to say, look, or call people out in those and talk about, look, I get it. You think I'm going to be slow? Nope. And this is why. You think I'm going to get bored? Nope. You guys are moving so fast, there will never be a boring moment around here. It might be the other way around. You going there, you might be bored because you're not going to see a final product for 7 years,
Right.
which is actually the case for a lot of people.
Mm.
And just addressing those biases because most of the time it literally is like that in everyone's heads. You just have a picture of what it could be, what it is, and you immediately go to those assumptions.
So what for you then is important in a producer? So their background in PC, console, or mobile, I imagine doesn't make a difference for you.
No.
So what is it that you're looking for, like if you're hiring a producer?
Um, I am looking for somebody who is calm in a storm because production is smack middle of everything. There will always be a storm. Somebody who is very practical about what they do, down to earth, somebody who doesn't fall in love with their beautiful baby and doesn't want to move, doesn't want to touch it because it's a perfect little baby and you don't want to change anything about it. And those are the fundamental things. Those are like the basics. Everything else is either coachable or will come with time.
One thing that I did want to ask you about is the vast majority of your career, like you already said, is 18 years, so pretty much nearly 2 decades, has been within gaming.
Yes.
But you did take a sidestep. You worked for Unity.
Yes.
So I wanted to, first of all, just how comes you made that step, I guess, and did you come back to games? But I'm always interested to know, is there anything that gaming can learn from tech, especially from a production perspective?
Mhm.
Is there anything that you saw in tech that was like, hey, that's a really good idea, we should be doing that? Or are there some things in tech that don't work within games?
I think like both answers are going to be very much connected for me. So the side step was a lot of heartbreak in gaming. Gaming is mega competitive, and it's not getting easier at all. And having seen project after project failing was devastating. So you're getting to a point where it's very hard to even care about the things you're doing because you don't know. It's such a lottery. So it became very difficult to cope with a lot of that. So I didn't want to become numb to all of these things. So I decided to take a step aside and become somebody who actually helps people create more experiences, simplifies their life with that, bringing my perspective on gaming. The one thing I want to have, borrow a little bit, I'm trying to do it as well, is being a bit more ruthless about projects and bringing in very early validation. Because a lot of what tech does, and you see it like even TV shows and, talking about it in every single startup incubator, is test, fail, test, pivot, fail. Early, often, talk to real people, validate as much as possible. Gaming tends to fall in love with what they're doing. And even though there is a test, there's always that, oh, but it's gonna be better if we just shove another feature on top of it, or we're gonna add a little bit of polish and people do not know. It's just the wrong kind of audience. That's the one thing I would love to bring back from technology is being a little bit more ruthless about these things and being a lot more preemptive with these things. Customer first, talk to the customer. If it doesn't fly, it doesn't fly. There is no way to give it flight anymore. It will prevent a lot of that heartache of you've worked for 7 years. It's out there. You've been super secretive because you don't want to release your secret sauce. And then nothing.
I was going to say mobile is better at that.
Mobile is
Better at like,
much
this
better at
isn't going to
that.
work. And I feel like even from a marketing perspective, um, marketeers tend to be involved very early on with mobile, that this is going
Yes.
to work, this is not going to work. Whereas PC console, it's about the art.
It's about the art, it's about the entertainment. It feels like you're making a movie. PC is very artistic, but mobile has become almost clinical more often than not, where it also becomes a conversation of this is a retention feature, we're going to shove it on top and it will move the needle in here and we're going to squeeze it over here and we're going to move it over here, and it's all about the psychology. Again, bring the customer a little bit into that conversation and asking, is this fun? Not if the number is going to move, but is this actually fun?
Because that's why people play.
That's why people play.
That's the fundamentals.
Exactly, because it becomes one of those, I'm going to put an equation on top of it. Instead of, oh, this is, if it's good, people are going to want to play it. People are going to want to pay you. People are going to want to follow you. People are going to engage with your game. It doesn't have to be psychological tweaks here and there. It can only also be like as simple as it is fun.
Sounds legit.
If only it
Go
were
figure,
that
right?
easy. If only it were that easy.
This is kind of, this question's about at any point in your career. It could be very early on, or it could be something that happened yesterday. But something that I'm very curious about is, what is one mistake that you've made and what did you learn from it? I just want to be clear, I'm not asking for your deepest, darkest secrets, obviously, but something where you're going, to know what, like, I'm actually really glad that that happened, because this is, I do it differently now, or I learned something from it. I think it's important to to be able to talk about it, and maybe someone else could also learn from that or kind of relate to that. So one mistake that you made at some point in your career, and what did you learn from?
Plenty of mistakes. 18 years. You cannot go on and 18 years and not make mistakes. The one that I think others could learn from was not moving away from a job where I felt stuck and I wasn't growing, I wasn't challenging myself for quite a while. It was a bit of loyalty, there was a bit of optimism, there was a little bit of fear of the unknown, what's out there.
Yeah.
And while loyalty is all great and it is an important part of the motivation why we work, it is also important to recognize that moment where this is it. I'm not growing professionally, I'm not growing personally, I'm moving backwards. And actually taking action on that. It's not selfish. It's not about you being unloyal or not committed to the job. It is about you also challenging yourself and bringing your best self to work. And that was the thing that right now, every single time I am taking a job, I am asking myself, is this going to be a challenge for me? Is it going to be something that I am going to be interested in? Will I be able to grow within this job if I stay here 3, 4, 5, however many years? And even being in the job is this something that is still valuable for both company and myself?
Because you also never know, like if you do change jobs, you can like learn something else, and then because this is your second time at Next Games, right?
Yes, it
So you
is.
can always come back as long as you
Exactly.
handle it in like a professional way, etc. It doesn't have to be like a mega negative thing, and you never know that
Yeah,
you could always learn something else and then bring it back.
yeah, and obviously, like, don't burn your bridges when you're leaving. Don't go, see ya in the next
Catch you later.
life. Catch you later. No, it is always something that to find something. Don't just jump because you're offered a better salary.
But that's not because you're talking about challenge,
Challenge.
growth,
Exactly.
knowledge. That's
It is
that's
that.
different.
It is a different thing. Find something that you're going to find challenging, you're going to find interesting. That's how I got into tech. That's how got into PC and console. All of these things happen because I wanted growth. I was looking for that. And without having that, without making that first step from that first job that I had, that was really scary to go out there, it wouldn't have happened.
Mm. What's one piece of advice that you were given from someone else? And again, it could be early on in your career or it could have been yesterday, but something that someone else has said to you that made a difference or made you think in some.
One thing that I'm still giving advice to some of my directs to this day, as a lot of people do not do, is ask for what you want. A lot of people assume, myself included, early on in the career, everybody's going to read my mind. Everybody's going to see how amazing I am and everything that I do and all of the long hours I'm putting in here. And they know all of my goals and aspirations for what I'm doing. And they get very disappointed when they don't get it. And I had to also, one of my managers, when I brought something like that, I got ask for what you want. And it's not about being selfish. It's about making sure your voice is heard and people understand where you want to go and what have you done. Because trust me, your managers are not omnipotent. They cannot read your mind and they cannot be there with you every single moment of every single day. So whether it's a brag document or an honest conversation driven a growth conversation, has to be there. It seems simple on the outside, but even a couple of weeks ago, I had a conversation around that where a person was very shyly talking about, I don't want to seem pushy, but ask for what you want.
Just say what it is that you
Say
want.
what it
Yeah.
is that you want, because then we're on the same page.
And talking about management, you've been a manager for quite a long time. Well, as a producer in general, you're part of management, but even kind of the high level management that you've done for quite a while now. So how would you describe your leadership style? And I don't necessarily mean that it has to have a label or a name. I don't mean that, but just kind of what kind of a leader, I guess, do you strive to be? Like what's important to you? What's not important to you? How would you describe like your leadership
Very CV recruitment conversation
style?
happening here. There are two non-negotiables for me in my leadership. One is context, and another one is empowerment. People do not function if they don't know why they're doing. A lot of the times, people concentrate on the what instead of the why. If you give the why, there's a lot more freedom to make decisions, to have that pivot possibility. Because if you know the why, if you know the North Star, you can choose the path on how to get there. I don't have to be there standing over your shoulder and giving you the path to get to where we want to be. And after you've given that, what you have to do is just remove the roadblocks. Because if you hire smartly, those people are very capable of doing things outside of your control and you holding their hands and telling them what to do. If you've hired well, they will be successful in what they're doing. Your job is to remove the roadblocks. But at the same time, if the situation calls for it and I need to jump into a production of an individual game, I am happy to do that. Roll up my sleeves and get to the business. I think that's pretty much it.
That's fine. This is not a job interview,
Yeah.
to be clear.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, no.
There's nothing, it's not rocket science. It's people.
But that's the thing that's hard about production, though, is that you're not just dealing with code, you're dealing with human beings that are
Yes.
very unpredictable and anything can happen at
Yes.
any time. And then also in the gaming industry, people are quite emotional with the
Oh
products
my
that they're working with and stuff. So it's not even, you're not just having to deal with product decisions, it's also dealing with human behavior, which is why I think production, from my perspective, at least, like I'm not a producer, but from my perspective, production, the hardest thing about production seems to be dealing with human emotion.
It is. Yeah. And this is why you have to deal with that in a manner that you're not overbearing and you're not over controlling and you're not there constantly looking over people's shoulders. As said, is if you give the big picture of where people want to go, they will go somewhere. But as I said, like I value in me, what I value in my people is calm and stress. If there is a storm brewing around me, I remain the calm, and then it becomes more of a conversation, not on an emotional level. If somebody's freaking out, I'm freaking out in response, and we're feeding off each other's freaking out energy, but more of, okay, let's talk. What's happening? Let's get down to, well, let's dig in. Of course, you have to read people in any manager's job. You have to be very careful in reading people's emotions and understanding people's triggers. I've heard the other day a very great example of speaking with people about their love languages. We speak about people in relationships, love languages, but every single one of us is different. So we all have a different love language. For somebody, having a praise during a town hall and some plastering their name on a slide is super important. But for somebody, a quiet gesture of thank you and go on a company dime to a restaurant is far more important than having their name plastered
Mm.
everywhere. So also, yes, taking care of that people element, but it's so fine grained and nuanced. I can't even elevate it to a leadership style because it's just dealing with humans.
Okay. My final question is, because this series is called Game Changers, because I'm interviewing people who I believe have made a difference in the industry. Um, what for you in your career has been a game changer? Like, was there a particular moment or a particular job, like something that you think shifted your career in some way, if you wouldn't mind
Yeah.
sharing?
Yeah, absolutely. Without a doubt, join in digital chocolate. Every country Every industry has that one pivotal company that accumulates a ton of crucial talent. So there was the famous PayPal mafia, where YouTube, Yelp, Tesla, SpaceX, they all came out of there. LinkedIn, all of that. In the Finnish gaming industry, that was digital chocolate. If you've heard of Deconstructor of Fun, the founder came from there. If you've heard of Supercell, the team came from there. There were a lot of companies and a lot of big things happening that came from there. I realized it after the fact when I joined. I was just happy to have a job and I love the company and their products. I joined Rovio soon after that. Day one, I know more people in the company than my onboarding buddy who's been there for 2 years. It created that network of people. It created also that little stamp of approval. Even to this day, I get where, oh, you're one of the DCHOC people. Okay, I see ya, kind of thing. So for me, at least, it felt like that was a very pivotal, crucial moment. It created that little seal of approval. You made it in the gaming industry.
That's very cool. So was digital chocolate a mobile gaming, like in case someone has never heard of
Yeah,
digital
yeah. So
chocolate?
Digital Chocolate closed down already by now. It was social and mobile gaming studio. It was I'm blanking out on the name of the tower building game, which was hugely popular at the time. It was acquired by an American company at one point. Famous Trip Hawking was actually leading Digital Chocolate at one point. We almost overlapped at one point, me joining and him leaving. And yeah, it just managed to hire and create just a whole generation of people in gaming.
Very cool. Very nice. Nice.
Welcome.
Thanks. This is it. This concludes our little interview. Thank you so much
Thank you.
for joining me. Really, really appreciate it. I've been spying on your LinkedIn for a while. So I'm glad I finally got to ask the questions that I wanted
Anytime,
to ask.
anytime.
And I think again, it's just to kind of round it up. I think it's important this conversation within production and PC console and mobile, because I know that so many
Yes.
people are trying to jump that bridge and wanting to understand why they're not being selected and what can they do and what can they focus on in interviews and cover letters and things like that. So I think this
Yeah.
has been really valuable. So
Wow.
thank you so much for everything.
Absolutely. Yeah. And as I said, I have a lot of mentees who ask me exactly this question. You did it both. Shall I do that? Shall I just dip my toe in there just in case to keep my options open? And yeah, I would say yes. But don't be afraid to be stuck. It is starting to blur a lot more these days.
Lovely. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And thank you for watching. See ya.